She was bleeding from her face, still gripping a bag of oranges. And yet, Officer Delgado tightened the cuffs anyway, like she'd just robbed a bank instead of picking up groceries. "Please," she said, voice steady but cracking. "I'm just shopping for dinner." But none of that mattered. Not to him, not to the crowd starting to form, and definitely not to Karen Whitman, the wealthy woman who started it all with 6 words. "She took pills from my purse." Now before we dive deeper, just sit with that a moment. Imagine being dragged out of a store, face scraped on asphalt, wrists twisted behind your back, all because someone thought you didn't belong in the produce aisle. But this story? Oh, it doesn't end there. Because 10 minutes later, a convoy of military vehicles rolled into that upscale plaza in West Bend Ridge, and out stepped a man with salt and pepper hair, a black beret, and medals that told their own story. Colonel Ezra Langston, her husband. Let me back up a sec. Her name is Dr. Aaliyah Langston, chief of neurosurgery at St. Augustine Medical Center, graduate of Meharry, former foster child, and one of the only black homeowners in a gated community where people prefer their neighbors quiet. That morning, she just wanted lemons, garlic, and fresh ginger. What she got was blood on her face and her name in every major headline by sundown. And here's where things snap. Because the moment Ezra saw his wife, the mother of his children, the woman who once saved a senator's life mid-flight, handcuffed on the curb next to a grocery cart full of kale and yogurt, something ancient lit up behind his eyes. You see, Ezra wasn't just a colonel. He was forged in fire. Back in Kandahar, he led search and clear missions through minefields so thick you had to crawl with your cheek to the ground. He buried friends, made decisions that haunted him, and learned fast that composure was a survival skill. But silence could get you killed. There was this one training op, Fort Irwin, Mojave Desert, 118 degrees in the shade. His squad got stranded, GPS dead, water running low. Ezra had to carry his teammate 5 miles uphill, dodging live fire drills, just to signal for evac. That's the day he learned what real leadership costs, and why nobody, not even a badge with an ego, gets to mistreat his family. So when Officer Delgado muttered, "Sir, step back, this is police business," Ezra didn't yell. He recited legal code, calmly, word for word. Tennessee Code 47103 outlines the conditions for arrest without a warrant. You've met none of them. Delgado blinked. Aaliyah? She didn't say a word, just looked up, blood on her cheekbone, still holding her professional mask like a blade. And then, like clockwork, Karen Whitman tried to sneak off, heels clicking on concrete. Ezra turned. "Ma'am, did you accuse my wife of stealing medication?" Karen faltered. I thought she... maybe... I wasn't sure. Thank you. That's on record now." See, Ezra wasn't alone. Captain Sloan, his second in command, had been filming the entire time. Body cam on, audio crystal clear. And guess who pulled up right then? Police Chief Raymond Locke. 3 decades in uniform, known for no-nonsense leadership, and now facing a PR disaster unfolding live on a dozen phones. He saw the scene. A colonel, a handcuffed doctor, a weeping crowd, and an influencer already live streaming on TikTok. You could feel the tension shift. "Release her," Locke ordered, voice sharp. Delgado hesitated. "I said release her." And just like that, the cuffs clicked off. But Aaliyah didn't collapse. No. She caught a man mid-fall, a bystander, elderly, with heart trouble, who fainted from the heat and chaos. With her hands still shaking, she dropped to her knees, tilted his head, began CPR. That moment, a woman wrongfully detained, publicly humiliated, saving a life while her accuser stood by frozen. It went viral. That clip, 8.4 million views in 12 hours. Comments flooded in. "Dr. Langston is a hero. Fire those officers." "Black excellence on full display." "Karen strikes again." "This is America, but not for long." Media outlets swooped in, CNN, MSNBC, even Good Morning America. But not all attention was kind. Some pundits questioned the need for military intervention. Others blamed Aaliyah for being too confrontational despite doing nothing but exist. At home, the Langstons weren't safe either. An unmarked SUV started parking near their house. Ezra wrote down plates. Anonymous notes were shoved under their door. "You don't belong here." Calls came from blocked numbers. One even whispered, "We're watching." Aaliyah stayed calm, outwardly, But the bruises on her wrists didn't fade easily. Not physically, not emotionally. She kept working. Patients needed her. But she'd glanced twice before entering the hospital garage. Nurses started walking her to her car in groups. They joked and called it Team Aaliyah, but deep down they knew this wasn't over. The hospital board stood behind her, at least officially, but soon came 3 anonymous complaints questioning her conduct, all unsigned, all eerily worded the same. CEO Dr. Morrison called her in, sighing, "We're required to log these, but I believe you, just so you know." And yet, the damage was done. Ezra, meanwhile, compiled everything. He created backups, indexed time codes, flagged every officer's face in footage. He didn't scream. He prepared. That's when an unexpected name appeared. Zoe Blaine, a local investigative journalist. She'd been tracking racially motivated policing patterns for nearly 2 years. What Ezra sent her blew the lid off a deeper rot, a network of coordinated profiling between the local HOA, police dispatch, and business owners. They had a private group chat. One cop literally wrote, "Profile clean, keep the gates clean. If they don't look the part, we make them leave." And guess what? Officers Delgado and Bryce appeared again and again in those messages. As all this unfolded, something else happened. Something rare. A young officer named Devin Marks, mid-30s, Latino, fresh out of community policing training, approached Chief Locke during a department meeting. "I need to report misconduct," he said, voice cracking. Next thing he knew, Devin's locker was emptied. His patrol schedule changed. His wife received a warning letter about misfiled insurance paperwork. The message was clear: stay quiet. But Devin didn't. He wore a wire, spoke with Zoe, testified, and suddenly the Internal Affairs Department, which hadn't fired anyone in 9 years, was scrambling to catch up. Because this wasn't about one Karen or one bad cop. It was a system, and it had finally been caught. But the question hung in the air like humidity before a storm. Now that they had the truth, what were they going to do with it? That's where it got complicated. Because Aaliyah? She stood at a crossroads. She could press full charges: civil rights violations, wrongful arrest, defamation, excessive force, public endangerment. And honestly, every lawyer in the city was begging her to. One firm even offered to take the case pro bono, saying it could set precedent. But then came the other voice, the quieter one, the voice that remembered the kids she treated at the free clinic, the one that thought about Devin Marks, the young officer who risked his career to speak up, the voice that wondered, how much more would they have to survive just to prove they deserved peace? Ezra was angry, furious really, but not loud. He was the type who cleaned his pistol in silence. He wanted justice, not just for Aaliyah, but for every family who didn't have the rank, the medals, or the media attention to fight back. But he also saw what this battle was doing to her. Every interview, every article, every comment online, it chipped away. People either praised her like she was a saint or accused her of staging the whole thing. One video claimed she smeared ketchup on her face, 100,000 views and counting. So they sat down one night, just the two of them, wine untouched, pasta cold, and had that conversation. "What if we walk away?" Aaliyah whispered. Ezra didn't answer right away. He looked out the window, saw the same unmarked car that had passed their house 3 times already. Then he said, "And what if we don't?" That silence between them, that was the battlefield. Because here's the truth. Choosing to forgive doesn't always mean letting go, and choosing to fight doesn't always mean hate. Sometimes, it just means refusing to disappear. In the end, they didn't sue the individual officers, but they didn't walk away either. They went bigger. They filed formal grievances with the Department of Justice, the State Attorney General's Office, the Civil Rights Commission, and the Department of Health. Because, as Aaliyah said in her letter, this isn't about punishment, it's about prevention. And then came the public hearing. You ever seen a courtroom so full the walls feel like they're holding their breath? Civil rights attorneys, off-duty nurses, veterans in dress uniform, activists, even Karen Whitman, now flanked by her lawyer, all packed into that town hall. But the moment that broke the room, it wasn't the graphs showing disproportionate arrests. It wasn't the whistleblowers damning emails. It was Aaliyah standing there, slow and steady, voice calm, describing, not the arrest, but the memory of being 11 years old, in a gifted science class, and the teacher asking 3 times, "Are you sure you belong here?" And she said, "That day, I realized excellence isn't protection. It's camouflage." You could hear a pin drop. The judge's eyes watered. One of the cops looked down and didn't look back up. And when it was Devin Mark's turn to speak, he didn't hold back. He said, "I joined the force because I believed in protecting people. But the culture I walked into, it didn't believe in protecting me, or her, or any of us." The fallout came fast. Delgado and Bryce were suspended without pay, then quietly dismissed. The HOA board president resigned after leaked emails exposed his role in targeting black homeowners. Karen Whitman took a plea deal, 300 hours of community service and mandatory bias training. The irony? She'd be working under Aaliyah's hospital foundation, distributing medication at free clinics. Chief Locke, sensing the tide, announced a full department overhaul before his retirement. New guidelines, community boards with power, body cam policies that actually got enforced. And Aaliyah? She went back to work, not because she moved on, but because that's who she was. The woman who steadied scalpels in an earthquake, who carried decades of excellence not as a shield, but as a promise. Still, life wasn't easy. 3 days after the hearing, she found a swastika carved into her locker at the hospital. Ezra installed security cameras around their home. Reporters camped outside their fence. But support poured in too. Care packages from colleagues, letters from strangers, patients hugging her a little longer. One letter stood out. It was from a teenage girl in Georgia who wrote, "I want to be like you, Dr. Langston. Not just smart, but brave." And just like that, the bruises didn't hurt quite as much. There's one last thing you should know. 3 months after the dust settled, the Langstons hosted a backyard potluck. No cameras, no speeches, just ribs, peach cobbler, and neighbors, real neighbors, sitting side by side. Even Devin Marks and his wife came, bringing their baby girl. Ezra stood at the grill, tongs in hand, watching Aaliyah laugh for the first time in weeks. Then he noticed a man across the street. New face, watching, hands in pockets. But this time, Ezra didn't flinch. He waved, because fear wasn't part of the Langston household anymore. Truth was, it never had been. Now let me ask you something. If you saw a neighbor harassed for the color of their skin, would you speak up? If you were them, would you forgive or would you fight? Because the Langstons did both. And now, it's your turn to answer. So drop a comment. Tell us what you would have done. Like this video if you believe justice takes more than outrage, it takes action. And subscribe for more stories of truth, courage, and the kind of people who change systems, not just survive them.